taking today's PLC, and we are discussing question 1. So our high priority learning standard is I can solve and represent with fluency 1 and 2 step problems involving multiplication and division, including interpreting remainders and variables in equations, and that's kind of what we're moving into next week.
Yes.
So I noticed though this week that we've started working on that too. We've started doing just a different variety of different, like I liked yesterday the task cards that had the division problems, just seeing it in multiple ways.
Right.
I think that that's really helpful.
Well, I think I'll just, a little bit next week, just show some word problems that we're just going to work through as a class, just to kind of get used to finding those keywords and
Like
Well,
modeling.
and I think the important part is about the including remainders.
Yes.
There was a few problems last week that kind of threw them for a loop
right.
when they
We haven't
realized.
seen enough of those.
And I even, honestly, I even was just taking the numbers, we were plugging them in and working them out, but not, and in that Google form, we weren't getting the right answers, because I was like, oh, you didn't need to include the remainder, or you needed to round up or round down.
Have they done a lot of work yet on interpreting
No.
the remainder
No.
or what to do?
I
with
just
the
noticed it
remainder?
in that one Google,
Yeah.
breakout kind of thing.
Oh, they had, yeah, there were some questions
Yeah.
about that in there. Are they doing some of that this week?
This
The
week-
interpreting remainder stuff?
No, we're still just like plugging along with the division.
Or just practicing?
Well, actually, that
That's right.
escape room tomorrow probably has some remainders in there, so
Okay.
yeah.
We had that
That'll
one.
help, and then I'll put some more in
We
there
had
next
that
week.
one activity where remember they had the different story problems, they sorted it into like, whether you use the remainder,
Mm.
round up,
Or
forget
drop
it,
it,
drop it, it had you sorting it out, which was kind of,
That was really great. We can find that.
Yeah.
Cause that actually was a really good activity.
Mhm.
I'm wondering
well,
if
when it had
we
them
could kick off the week next week.
and it had them
doing
practicing
some
the math
interpreting
on all
reminders.
those, but then they had to like figure out, they had to read to understand the problem, to know where to sort it.
Yeah. I can look for that.
We'll look for
Would,
it.
would it be better to do that this week or beginning of next week, you think?
Well,
This week you already had.
yeah, and I've been trying to just keep just practicing the steps with the long division this week.
Yeah.
Make sure we have that mastered. But I can do that on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
I've looked through some of y'all's stuff, and there was an activity called interpreting remainders. So that may be what the one you're talking about, and so I'll download it and look at it.
That's the title of it.
Uh-huh.
And it's probably that.
Uh-huh.
It's like the top half are the story problems and they cut them out and they
Mhm.
glue them onto the bottom and
Mhm.
into which category or
Yeah.
something.
It's a challenge, but it's good.
Yeah.
And so then we're thinking, so maybe kick off the week with interpreting remainders practice, and then we're thinking going into just more word problems with both.
Yes, and I'll put this in the planning doc too.
Both multiplication and division.
How are we thinking we want to assess? Because I know that we've had concerns with some of the other math tests that like, they don't show their work, so then they get it wrong, and we're like, how do we know where they went wrong so we can give intervention if they don't pass? So have we thought, do we still wanna do a digital and then maybe have, like, you have to show your work, you're gonna submit that too? Like, we could have
Separately, that's what I
a
think.
separate assignment
That's
where
a
they
good
submit
idea.
the work?
Because really, the assessment probably only needs to be about 10 questions. It doesn't need to be
And I would
ton.
think something just as simple as as a picture of something that they print out or use.
Maybe I could just
that's
print
gridded
something that's
out.
gridded in like 10 boxes.
Because
to solve each problem in each box.
They do the problems sometimes all mix matchy in their journal, and you can't quite, I don't know
Makes sense.
what number is what problem.
Right, yeah. That's
Give
a
them
good
an
idea.
organized thing that forces them to practice it.
That's a good idea.
And are we thinking we want the assessment to kind of encompass both multiplication and
It's
division?
gonna have to.
Yeah. A separate assignment to submit work from the test since it's digital. I like that.
Yeah, and then after next week, we go into geometry, so I'll probably try to get that assessment on Friday of next week.
And they go into geometry. Now, last year we did measurement, remember? Because we went into measurement because then measurement led into angles. We did all the angles and then went into geometry.
So On
which
the,
is really weird. So what does the scope and
on the
sequence say
scope and
this year?
sequence, it says geometry for 2 weeks, and then angles for 2 weeks, and then measurement for 2 weeks, and then personal finance at the end.
Okay. Okay,
So does that work?
I think so.
Okay.
This geometry is just, it's gonna be mostly like your shapes,
Y'all,
And-
that's 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks.
and then
And then that's the end of the school year.
that's crazy.
Wow.
We don't have much time left to get all this done.
I know, it's a lot to get in.
Okay.
Are we thinking
I
that
mean,
we
we're on the
can?
right track, it's not like we're
Yeah,
behind.
no, I mean, we're not behind.
But it
I
is
mean,
kinda like.
that has been the nice thing with this
The end is
scope and
in sight.
sequence this year is we've not been behind like we are every other year.
Right.
Every year, we usually always fall behind in some way, and
Well,
then we just can't catch up.
If it was my choice, I would probably still do 2 more weeks of long division. I feel like we kind of need it. So, I mean, maybe reassess too at the end of, like, in the middle of next week and say, are we ready for the assessment? Do we need to take some more time and maybe,
Yeah.
rework the schedule a little bit?
It
So
also
we're thinking
might be
story
helpful.
problems all next week, interpreting remainder story problems all next week, and then we're thinking maybe middle of the following to assess.
That may be better, just to give us a
Okay.
little bit more time.
Yeah.
It also might be interesting to look at like lead
Look at-
forward and just to kind of like see how many questions.
Could we pull some questions from there
Just
to help
like
us
to
with
see,
the
like,
assessment? Have
you
you
know.
looked to see if there is one already created, that the district created for multiplication division? I wonder if there's one already.
There are some, yes, there are some, yeah.
that are mixed together.
Yeah, I'll look at it and I can edit whatever I find, so
Okay.
if I don't love every problem, yeah.
Saying Wednesday the 17th. No, the 24th. Sarah, did you wanna pull up lead forward?
I am.
You're on top of things.
Whole number
Cause
operation.
lead forward would be a great place.
What teak is our?
Hmm?
I wish they told me more detail about the teaks, like I have to like look that up.
Oh.
Never mind, I got it, I'll have to. Like, it just gives you the number.
Well, it could, they have them written all underneath here, and I'm wondering if it's one of these, like 4.4D or,
Oh, yeah, that's what it would be, yeah. Well, those are the high priority, 4.4D.
uh-huh. Or 4.4, it's one, I think it's
Okay,
4.4D
let me
is
just
the
click on
solving
4.
problems one,
4.4D.
maybe try that.
I mean, I had 4.4H there too. Okay, I'll just do that, I'll do 4.4D. What do you mean to look for on this? Examples of problems or how many?
Maybe just look for some examples, and then maybe we can compare with the assessments that Jackie has, just to make sure we have a variety of different ways. But I agree, I mean, I don't feel like the test needs to have, more than 10 problems. I mean, I think that's probably sufficient.
Yeah.
So then, in terms of like intervention afterwards, what are we thinking we wanna do
I was already thinking,
if kids don't pass?
especially for my virtual kids that I can't put my eyes on the actual work that they're doing. I was already thinking, like, this week, do I need to call a tutoring session after school? There's just no time during the day to pull those kids from home, but even my in-person kids could jump on if they're at home and just kind of work through some problems together. I mean, it's just the tedious of practice, and maybe do one, I don't know, maybe next week, getting ready for the assessment, making sure that they're ready, and then we can kind of look at the assessment and see, okay, do we need to have some more days, do we need to do a reteach session, something like that. I was already kind of thinking, there's a couple kids at home, like, oh, I need to reteach this too,
I know.
so.
Well, and
Well, for some of
third
those that
grade,
are
they've been doing RTI all year, and I'm certain that they're doing it during that extra 30-minute window of time where, we're plugging in like our read aloud time, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, I think that they're making it fit and work probably
Right
in
in
that window.
what time of the day.
No.
I mean, I guess technically I could pull a few kids over in the morning before announcement started to get here early enough. You know, there is a good 20 minutes there. I don't know.
Would there be a way, because I know, because all the kids are doing the same thing, you know, while they're doing their independent work time during the math block.
Yeah.
Like I'm wondering,
Do it then.
I'm wondering if there, you know, if one of us wanted to pull a small group
Mhm.
in the hallway of any kids who don't pass the assessment, and we can just sit and work
Yeah.
with a small group, you know, and we
Yeah.
can kind of flexibly, you know, kind of just move back and forth while they're independently working.
Yeah.
We could always do that too.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because there is a good chunk of, okay, here's your work time.
Yeah,
Whatever they're working on, I could just pull the group and.
well, and there's always gonna be,
There's not a lot.
there's always gonna be the handful of kids that don't pass, you know, the kids that
Yeah.
have failed every single
Well, and
math
I have
assessment.
a pretty good amount of kids that I mean,
that
I'm just
struggle.
going between them during, like just now I was doing that. I was
It's
going
the
between the same,
It's
like,
the same
4
ones.
kids, whatever, because they need me to hold their hand while they're doing it, you know, literally.
Well, they need the constant extra support,
Yeah.
and then even after
They
the
just don't
test,
have the
we
confidence
need
to, like,
reteaching,
Yeah.
reteaching support, it's those same friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We can definitely, and we can just pull from each class too. I mean, we could just do a group.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, we absolutely could. I like the tutoring idea as well, though, you know, just kind of an as
Because I
needed
could- Yeah.
tutoring session, you know.
Well, and we really, more than 30 minutes and they're like done. So it didn't have to be an hour-long tutoring session. I think like Monday after school for 30 minutes, we could easily do that.
Do you want me to airplay some problems on here, or
Yeah,
is that
let's
what
look
you
at
wanna
some,
look at?
let's look at some, let me turn mine off.
So I just clicked on a lot of the TEKs in this whole number operations, because it wasn't coming up with a whole bunch.
Okay,
Okay, so multiplying 27 times 16,
Oh, it's a word problem. I was
It's a
like,
word problem.
okay.
this is the, yeah.
Okay.
It's just multiplying two numbers by two numbers.
Yeah.
How many marbles do
My
they put
kids
into
have
each
that.
container?
Like they understand the 2 by 2 multiplication, especially with the box.
Yeah.
They've got it.
Teacher
I'm not
puts this many, they're dividing 9 into 3, this is gonna be, would have been a griddable.
so I think we probably definitely need to have, are we thinking majority single step and maybe
Yeah.
3
into
that have like a
160.
multi-step
Yeah.
component, you know, having a few on there?
Mm-hmm.
7 into 168.
Are we talking about for the assessment or just as we're practicing, like,
Well, I mean, I think there needs to be a combination of both, I mean, I think,
in the assessment?
and you know, next week, once we finish interpreting remainders and we go into working on the multiplication and division, I think we just have to make sure that we have
Look at
kind
this
of a
one.
combination of some single step and then multi-step.
Okay.
But the multi-step is what is just, what's
Look
really
at this
tricky.
one.
Oh, yeah.
Which expression has a quotient of, even though we've used those words, but we
Oh,
don't
I know.
use
The
them enough.
vocabulary.
I know.
They're not gonna, that's from 2019.
The vocabulary.
I might even put some vocabulary questions on the assessment.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
here's a problem, label the problem. Because we could easily just drag the words to label it.
Oh, a draggable, yeah.
I mean,
What's so hard about this one is it's not even, I'm like, of about
I
7.
know. Oh gosh.
I mean,
It's not even an exact answer.
No.
It's like an estimation.
That's so hard.
It's so, okay.
Well, and sometimes you get such oddball questions like this, it's like, how do you prepare them for them to have a question like this? It's like,
I know.
who would have thought that we should do
These
an
were
estimation
rounding.
question with all the vocabulary words, you know?
I
It's
think we
like,
passed the rounding.
you try to come up with all the different possible ways they might see it, but
Okay,
it's almost impossible.
This one's trickier. 1 step, 2 step. Bought 4 bags of candies. Each one had 8 candles. Or candles or candies?
Candies. Oh, it's
Candies. Each bag of candies. Sorry, yeah. It's just so tiny. Well, it's tricky.
So it is, how many were left
and-
over, so it's asking for the remainder.
remainder, yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Which, that one, I mean, to me, even as an adult, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna draw a picture. You know,
I know,
like,
I
for
know.
them, I can teach them.
You wanna
Okay,
draw
just
the
you a
bags and
little
the
picture.
bags and
Yeah.
the candies. The candies are the number
Pass them out evenly, how many
For some of
else?
these kids, visually is like the
Oh,
only
yeah.
way they can see these
Mhm.
problems, you know?
Baker has 24 cakes each day for 2 days.
That's so hard. Okay. Will you, send me the link to that, just so I can reference these again?
ones,
And I
yeah.
want
There's a
to
couple
search it.
things that I
That's
think
even,
there is
it's
some
even a
rounding
credible
ones.
question.
These are more, Fran bought 4 shirts that were 13 each. I remember this problem. She also bought pairs of socks. How much
For 429, okay.
she was,
So,
what was the
I mean,
total
that's
amount
not
she
big
paid for
stuff.
the shirts and the socks? I even remember a kid asking, and I couldn't help it, but asking about the word pair.
Yeah.
The word pair.
I'm like, you're overthinking it. Like, that's what I wanna say, you're
Yes.
overthinking it, but can't
Tara has
help
nothing
you.
to do with it.
I'm like, girl, don't overthink the problem.
Yeah.
Not that it's a big deal, but Lord.
Well, and then you have some that are so wordy.
Look at this one.
And then
Bought cases of sports drinks, 76 cases, each case had
Xavier Elementary
24.
School, I mean, I have kids go, how do you say that?
What's
Right.
Xavier? You know, they
All the
think that's
drinks
an
were
important
passed
part
out,
of the
each one-
problem and.
Okay, this one is a lot. 76 cases, each case had 24. All of them drinks were given, all of them were given out. Each one received each kid got 3 drinks.
Oh boy,
How many students received drinks? What?
oh my, that's so wordy.
I don't even know, like, look how many people missed it though. Like, look at
Right.
look the analysis over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a majority. That's a doozy.
A lot of steps.
This one too. 128 fluid ounces of salsa put into bowls at a restaurant. She filled up each bowl with 6. There was not enough salsa. Oh.
Okay, yeah, we need to, that's what we're gonna be working on next week, is just
Okay,
kind
these
of
are great.
interpreting these word problems.
Pull these,
Yeah.
these can be the practice
Great
problems.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, again, will you send me that link, so I'm to search it up again, yeah.
We have a couple minutes left. Anything else that we need to talk about in regards just to next week or how we want to teach that? I mean, the interpreting remainders, yes, that's gonna take some modeling. I think the multi-step problems will need modeling.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and they have said for years to have some type of vertically aligned steps or process, you know, that the kids can use to help them work through the multi-step problems.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was something they talked about just years ago. And
I
it's
like,
so hard for the kids, cause every year,
yeah,
there's different
The
acronyms
teacher-
to remember
it's a
sometimes,
new
or
new acronym, something different.
even
and
for
you just
us,
need-
like every year we try something new or different, and it's like, who's to say
well,
whether
and
it
then
worked
when
or
you
didn't?
try to search for the acronym you're trying to use, you know, there's, or like, just acronyms that are online, there's just so many different ones. Although I was really excited when I found that grid method video that was using the acronym we were already using.
Yeah.
Hey, this won't be confusing. Right, so.
Yes.
Well, then some kids don't necessarily need the acronym, and so
Right.
it's maybe that frustrating to them that we're forcing
We're
them to
making
think in
them,
this
yeah.
order when really for them their number
intuitive.
sense, it makes sense
Uh-huh.
to them and they understand how to. So
Which
you
for
have-
them, I'm like, you don't have to use it. I just
No.
have to make sure that you are thinking through all these steps.
Mhm.
Some of them, we have to write it
But
on our
it's the
desk
kids,
every
and
time.
it's the kids that need those steps, then they choose not to do the steps.
Mm.
They're not
Yes.
they're not the well-behaved
Step
step
followers.
followers.
The kids that need
the steps.
the extra support are probably also the kids that are gonna be the most confused, cause they're doing a different strategy every
Right.
year.
Right.
You know, to work through, and they're like,
That's
oh,
true.
well, that's not how I did it last year, you
Mhm.
know? But it's
Yeah, it
true,
would be
I mean, those
a-
are the ones that need to be.
It would be a good conversation to have with fifth grade, like when you're doing long division, what steps do y'all teach them? Like, have y'all?
You know, and that was one thing that they came to us at the end of last year. Well, at the end of last year, they came to us when they were teaching division, and they said, did y'all teach them that grid method?
Oh, yeah.
And we said, yes.
Are we in trouble?
Well, and usually it doesn't go.
Right.
Usually it does not go well, you know, if we're, you know, because they teach, you know, them
Differently.
something different,
Sure.
and they want us to teach them something different. But she said, it's great.
Mhm.
It is so great.
Mhm.
And the kids remembered it,
Mhm.
which threw us for a loop because we taught that in virtual learning in
Oh.
April.
That's funny.
So we taught it virtually to all of our kids. And it was something that they actually remembered going to fifth grade. Like, I was actually really surprised. And I guess they were like really pleased because they actually remembered it. Because years past,
Yeah.
we didn't do the grid method. We just taught them the standard algorithm. And the kids would
That
get
was
to
good to
fifth
hear.
grade and they still could not divide. I mean, and they would tell us year after year, they don't know the steps, they don't know how to divide. And we're like, we don't, you know, what do we do? But the grid method is just something that they catch on to, and it's exactly like the long
It's been
division.
super interesting having conversations with my girls in 6th and 8th grade, talking about doing division on their work. And Lindley was saying that when she was showing her teacher, she had gone up to show her teacher her work, and I guess she would have a line of people, and she would correct their work right then, and if they did something wrong, they'd go back and fix it right then. And she was like, Lindley would have all of her facts written down on the paper,
Yeah.
just like she was taught how to do. It was however she'd been taught, and she was like, you do this so strangely. And she taught her at that moment, well, there's the faster way to do it. And she was like, oh, okay. Like, she didn't know. And so it's just been interesting, like, where does the why part that we teach, where does it finally translate over, and they dropped that part to do the standard regularly?
Mhm.
Because for her, she just wasn't really taught it. And so then when
Yeah.
she was shown it, she was like, oh, okay, I can do that, you know. But I feel like the why is good, because she was like, I was obsessive about the box method. I mean, I loved the box method because it just made sense, and it, you know, she's like, but now I realize I don't have to use that anymore, you know. So that's interesting. Like, what year do they?
I know.
Have that
And
confidence in what they're doing
as
that they
far
can.
as I've always known, fifth grade, I mean, they teach them the standard algorithm, you know, like in
Yeah.
fifth grade, because
Which we show them, but I think it
We
just
do.
doesn't connect with so many people. Most of my kids use the box method because it just makes more sense to them. Which I'm
Yeah.
thankful that they have, because I was never taught any other method
I was
besides
taught
standard
that. I
algorithm.
struggled with
Right.
long division.
Yeah.
It was
And I
tough.
also didn't understand what I was doing.
Right.
I was just following these steps. I'm like, at
And
one
it
point my
works.
dad was like, do you realize that you're making this number smaller? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm like, oh, I guess maybe so, but I didn't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway, I have been kind of showing my kids when it doesn't go in evenly to the first digit, that if you go ahead and follow the steps and put a 0 there, I don't know, I mean, I said, this is an extra step that you don't really have to take,
Mhm.
but instead of saying, well, just skip that number, well, I was kind of telling them that, I said, you know what, let's put a 0, because it doesn't go in any times, and let's go through the steps, put the 0 in the box, do
Because you're
all
getting,
the
you're
steps.
getting in the habit of putting a 0 when it
Put
doesn't.
a 0 and do all the steps, and when you bring up that next number, now that same number is there, and now do it that way. And that kind of, oh, it does, it goes in 0 times,
Mhm.
rather than just saying, skip that number.
Well,
you
some
know?
of mine wanted to skip, but then they totally forgot that they have to carry that
Right,
digit over.
right.
Because it was left over, and they're like, well, this isn't working. And I'm like, well, you
You
didn't
didn't put-
actually go through, you know,
Yeah.
let's just go ahead
So
and
it's
go
kind
through
of
the
good
steps so you remember
practice
to.
to show them, well, go ahead and go through all those steps with the 0. So,
And I've said it before, maybe in this meeting or whatever, but that compare part is like so important.
yeah,
Because there's so many times that like, a quick learner is going through it, she's like, I'm not getting the right answer. And I'm like, well, right here, you didn't